Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Stars podcast. My name is Betzaira, and I'm here with Bryan. We're organizers at the New Mexico Dream Team. My pronouns are they, she, and
I go by he, him, él.
And today we are on our 5th episode of Beyond the Stars. Ooh. Wow, how time goes by really fast. Yeah, and this is a project that was just started this year. So what an honor to be continuing the work in such an important time politically and everywhere in this world. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. Your participation helps us know how important this is for community. It also helps us so that we know who is watching and also be a part of the conversation. We invite you. This is a conversation that we want to open up to the community. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear how these things impact you as well, because at the end of the day, we work, we live, we breathe this stuff, but we want to know, how can we connect? That's the big question this time.
I agree. So, and remember, your engagement also helps for us to get this word out to more people, right? The more likes that we get, the more shares gets this word out to as many people as we can. And that's what we want. We want them all to hear these stories. We want them to know that they're not alone and that there is a podcast for people like us out there.
Oh, yeah. That would have been nice in middle school, high school when people had all the jokes. People still have jokes about us today, but you know what? That's for another conversation. We have jokes about us too, but that's okay. Cool. Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking about something that's really important for us to talk about, because oftentimes the work here at Beyond the Stars podcast is to fight back against the immigrant narratives and stereotypes that they push on us. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. You're a human being. I'm a human being. Bryan might be a human being.
Might. Emphasis on the might, y'all, because we're still trying to figure that out.
Look at that. Look at that. But these things are important more now than ever, because we have an administration that is known for perpetuating harm against our community, and we have to at least fight back the narratives. So we are going to be talking about what is the impact of detention centers beyond just the inside. We had Edwin tell us their powerful testimony a few episodes ago about
episode 3, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go check that one out. That one's a good one too.
It was powerful, and that was we shared a lot of stories there. It was just a beautiful full circle moment for everyone in the room that day, and we got to really hear what the experience is within a detention center, multiple detention centers as well, because Edwin had to live through a couple of them. And so now we want to know, what is the experience connected to the detention center, but from folks that are experiencing their loved ones being abandoned and mistreated in these centers. And also that this is not new. Although there is a renewed energy around immigration and how horrible these conditions are and how horrible and inefficient the immigration system is to our people, this is not new. And we want you to remember that when you see the news reacting in this way that's like chaotic, and they could have never predicted this. This was predictable. This is textbook. Yes. And our organizers, our folks that have been working on the ground for a while, have been saying that. And so we want to talk a little bit more about that today and have a record for y'all to hear, to share, and to connect with. So,
like Betzaira mentioned, we focus a lot on the stories about individuals inside of these detention centers, that we sometimes tend to forget that this is an issue that affects the whole family, right? Whether it is from just, not seeing your family member coming home and not seeing that family member sitting at that table again, like you were normally doing for the past 5 years, and suddenly they're completely gone, right? So we want to highlight those stories, and we want to also, for you to understand that this is a collective issue. And if doesn't affect you at this specific moment, some way along the line, it is going to affect you, right? And want to really emphasize on the fact that it is a collective. And with that in mind, I want to introduce somebody very special to us. We are here joined by Itzayana, one of a family member that went through this experience firsthand. And I'll give you the floor, girl.
Thank you, Bryan. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Your podcast. A little bit about me. My name is Itzayana Banda. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I'm 30 years old now. I have a beautiful daughter. I have 2 siblings that I love, a mom and a dad. And I know I'm here today to share my story, but I'm also here today to bring awareness to what happens when your father is in a detention center, and what happens after your father gets out of the detention center and how it affects your mental health during the years. I have heard before saying that, oh, it's fine. He's already in Mexico. It's fine. It's okay. Nothing bad happened to him. But really, people don't see the other side of the picture. They don't see how no one got to see how scared I was, how I really wanted to change my identity, how I was like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I really thought the world was against me for many years. So, yeah, during my story, I'll share little bits about me and you guys will get to know me better.
Sounds good. Well, we're more than happy to have you here.
But I'm wondering, what brought you here to New Mexico? Did you grow up here? What was that like for you?
Yes. My dad came first, and then a year later, my mom decided we had to be together because we were already family. My sister was like around like a year. I was 3. So then we came over here with my dad. And yeah, I've been here since I was 3. And I went to school here. I graduated from here, and I have been here my whole life. And I used to call this home, and then that happened with my dad, and then that's when my eyes were open to noticing, like, I was here, but I didn't belong here.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, I met the New Mexico Dream Team, and that's when I was like, you know what? I belong here. Even if you don't want to, I still belong here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started calling New Mexico my home again.
Wow. Okay. So when you were younger, you felt like out of place. What was that like for you in school? Did you get picked on?
No, what happened is that since I grew up here, it was I started kindergarten here, and I don't remember. I remember my friends being like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Mexico for vacation, and our grandma's in Mexico, and we're gonna go visit her." And I remember me telling my mom, "Why don't we ever visit my grandma?" Like, and my mom would be like, "¿Quieres que te lleve la migra?" But I thought like she was just like, "Oh, okay."
Free ride, Mom?
No, I didn't know what it was. So I was like, at that point, I was like, "Oh, it's probably the el cucuy."
Yeah.
Because I was like, "Why is she saying it like that?" So then in little conversations, I would hear my auntie being like, "No, que andaba la migra." So then I was little. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. So elementary school, I really didn't care. My friends would be like, "Oh, we're going to go like to Mexico." And I would be like, "Oh, well, I'm going to Mexico too." But I would never go to Mexico but I used to think we wouldn't go to Mexico because we were poor. Not because of like our status or nothing like that. In middle school, I remember not talking about it either, but my friends would also be like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Cancun or this place or that place." And I remember telling my parents again, like, "Why don't we ever travel?" And then my mom would be like, "Oh, we just took you to Colorado." And I would be like, "Well, yeah, but take me somewhere else. Like, how come my friends get to go to these places and I don't?" And she would tell me, "Oh, okay, well, déjale hablo a la migra." And I would be like, "What?" Like, I never in my head did I wanted to do like that research. Yeah. I was just like, okay, she doesn't want me to go nowhere.
Well, here we go again.
Yeah. And then on 8th grade, I remember teachers and some students were planning a trip, but they were going to go to Mexico. So I remember that I signed up for the trip. I was like, I want to go. But then my mom got mad and she's like, no puedes andar haciendo eso. And I was just like, okay, I guess like there's not that money. That's what I used to think, like the money wise. So then that was it. Like I wouldn't talk about it. And then when I went to high school in 9th grade, I think I wanted to join this program or do something. And then the teacher was like, "Oh, can I get your social security number?" And that's when I was like, wait, what is a social security number? So then I went to go ask my mom. I was like, "Hey, can I have my social security number?" And then she was like, "You don't have one." She was like, "You have an ITIN number." And then I was like, "Oh, what's the same thing?" So
right? 9 digits.
Yeah. So then I went to the counselors and then I was like, "Here's my social. And have you guys seen an ITIN number? It's green."
Yes.
So then she was like, "Oh, no, a social is blue." And then I was like, okay, well, mine's green. Like,
does this make me better?
Yeah. And then she was like, "No, this is an ITIN number." And that's when she was like, "You should talk to your mom, like, and ask them for their taxes and all of this." So then I go talk to my mom, and that's when I noticed. She was like, no, like, you don't have anything like that. You were born in Mexico, but you were raised here, and you don't have papers. But at that moment, I was like, okay, it's just a piece of paper. Like, it doesn't matter. But then I see I couldn't apply for scholarships. I couldn't go to trips. I couldn't do things that other students were doing because I just didn't have a social security number.
Wow.
And that was just 9th grade.
Did you, since the beginning, since you got here when you were 3 years old, all the way through your high school when you found out you were undocumented, did you happen to have any sort of like other friends who were undocumented? Hear other people say they were undocumented?
I don't know if it was just a thing on my friends, my circle, but we never mentioned undocumented. I don't know if it was just something we wouldn't talk about, but for me, it was just like, okay, how can I explain it? I think when I was like, 9th grade, I started hearing like, oh, saqué un seguro chueco. But just that, like, I wouldn't go into it. I wouldn't be like, why? Like, what's that?
Yeah, it's like, you're like, okay.
Okay, you do you. But I didn't never think it was going to affect me. Because I grew up in this environment where my mom would stay at home. My dad would go to work. My mom would make sure my sister and I and my brother would go to school. And then she would pick us up from school. We would do our homework, stay at home. And that was just like the routine. I really thought that's what every family was doing. And then during the weekend, we would just go like to my uncle's house where I would hear like, oh, this person got deported. Oh, this person was in jail. They'll probably get deported. But when you're like, I was 14 and it's just my mind never thought it was going to go through that. Because like I said, my dad would just go to work and he would come back and I would be like, okay, this is normal. And I used to live in this little world where my mind was go to school, study, your parents are okay, and your bills are paid. So I thought since my parents were doing everything good, nothing was going to happen to us because that's how they make it seem in the movies.
You were doing everything, quote unquote, right, especially by like your viewpoint in 9th grade. That's when you realized that it was different.
Yes, that's when I started realizing everything was different. I get to 10th grade and some of my friends already started working. They would start working like at McDonald's and just places like that. And I would hear them say like, oh, no chequean el seguro. So then that's when I was like, okay, I have to look a little bit deeper into this. But it wasn't something like I was like stressing over. Like I said, I used to look at my dad. He had his own little business. He did landscaping. And I would go with him sometimes. So I would be like, okay, we're safe. We're safe. And this is all really good. So from like 3 to 16, I want to say, everything seemed really normal to me. So those were not things that would like worry me, especially because at school, you don't talk about that. At school, you never tell no one, hey, you know what? Like, you're undocumented. These are your rights. If a police officer stops you, this is what you have to say. None of that is shown nowhere. And I don't know if it was just my circle, but I didn't know about like nonprofits. I didn't know there was a community.
I know you keep mentioning about your dad, how he was a part of these detention centers. And, you know, I want to ask you if you could take us back to that moment, right? The moment he was detained. How did you find out? How was that for you, you know? And what do you remember about that? And how did that change your family's dynamic, right? Everyday life completely changed, a 180 turn. And yeah, tell us a little bit more.
I'll go ahead and answer that. Before that, I want to talk about the connection I had with my dad growing up.
Of course.
Like I said, the first time we were separated was when he came to Mexico and he left. Well, he left us over there. But I was little at that point. Like, I just remember thinking my dad left for work and then that was it. And my mom would always be like, oh, vamos a ir con tu papá. So for me, it was something normal. Like I said, when I was 3, I came back. I saw him. I grew up in this environment where my dad would go to work, but also where my birthdays would get celebrated. I would always have a cake at school, in the house. Santa existed also. We always had like presents.
What do you mean he doesn't?
And I remember when I was starting to grow up and going to the bailes and all that, like I would be like, hey, dad, me compras ropa. He would make sure that like I had everything. He was that typical Mexican dad that wouldn't like smile, but he would make sure we had everything. I remember he would kind of play with us, have like these little nicknames for us. Probably he was that dad that was not like in our school events because I knew he was always working. But when I got home, he would be like, hey, ¿cómo te fue, mija? And every Sunday, he make sure we would go to el free market. That's what he would call it. And then he would take us for food. And he loves music. Like, he would get out his piano and he would just start playing the piano and made me and my sister sing it. Even if we didn't know the song, we would start singing. And then at the parties, he would also ask the musicos if he could like sing. So he would always sing at my mom. Yeah, so he was just there. Like and then my brother came to the picture, and then he would make sure that my brother was also taken care of. Like I said, I grew up in this environment where mom was at home and he would go work to make sure we had everything. Well, in 2011, in October, I had my daughter. I was just 16. I had my daughter. It was this pregnancy where I didn't know I was pregnant, but that's a whole different story. So it took us by surprise. Me, my parents, my dad. He was like, "What do you mean you had a baby?" And he was happy. He was happy that he had una nieta. And then, like I said, my daughter was born in October. And in December, my dad got deported. So I get to Clovis, and then my uncle calls me. And I was like, my uncle called me. So then I go to the other room, and I answer. And then he was like, hola, mija, ¿cómo estás? And I was like, ¿qué, tío? Bien, acá estoy en Clovis. And then he was like, oh, qué bueno. And he just kept saying, And I was like, ¿qué pasó, tío? Like, dígame qué pasó. And then he was like, oh, es que la policía agarró a tu papá. And then I was just like, la policía, like, did he get a ticket? He was like, no, lo metieron a la cárcel. So then I remember that I was just like, okay, like, I don't know what happened. So then I told him he had to take me back to Albuquerque. And I left my daughter with her family. So then we came back to Albuquerque. I get to my house and my mom's crying. And she mentions, se lo va a llevar la migra. And that's when I was like, whoa.
There's that word again.
Yeah, so then I remember being like little again and being like el cucuy. So then I remember I was like, no, ma, like my mom was full on crying. And then I was like, no, like let's see how this works. So then they told us we should get a bond and that we should just get a bond. And that's what we did. And I remember that my mom paid, and then they were like, oh, well, come tomorrow at 8 in the morning. The gate opens and your dad will be out. So I remember waking up like at 6 in the morning, and I was like, we're going to go pick up my dad, and I'm just going to hug him and tell him that I love him. So then we get to the jail, and then the gate opens, and then I see this tall man. My dad is super tall. And he waves at me, and then I wave at him, and then I was going to start running when this white van just gets in the middle of us, and I don't see my dad anymore. That was it. Like, I remember my mom just started crying, and then the guy that was there with us, he was like, oh, ya se lo llevó a inmigración. And I just remember looking at my mom and being like, ¿Cómo que inmigración? And then she told me, ya no vas a ver a tu papá. But honestly, nothing clicked. I was like, what is this? So then I remember we just got home and my mom was like crying. My auntie was crying. And I was just like, what is this? Like, what is this whole process? Like, what's going to happen? So then I called the jail and I was like, hey, you let my dad go, but then someone else picked him up, and then they were like, oh, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know. So a day passed, another day, and it continued to be like that till one time my mom's phone was like ringing, but my mom wouldn't answer because she was already like, it was hard for me like to see my own mom being just like, okay, this happened, like I don't know what else to do. So she was just laying down. She was just like, dale desayuno a tus hermanos, and like I knew she was so worried because we didn't know where my dad was. Mm-hmm. So then that day I answered the phone. The first thing I hear is, mija. And I just remember like my body was just like I was happy because I heard him, but my body was just like, I'm never going to be able to explain how my body felt at that moment. But I just remember being like, okay, we're going to be together again. Like, I was like, he's here and I'm going to be able to see him. So I just remember yelling, Mama, mi papá está hablando, like my dad is here. I hear my mom just like running towards me, and then she was like, Jorge, ¿qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? And then I hear my dad saying like, no sé dónde estoy, pero no tengo zapatos, estoy durmiendo en el suelo, no estoy comiendo y no sé dónde estoy. So then my mom was like, ¿quieres un abogado? Like, what do we do? And then my dad was like, sí. And then my mom was like, ¿te van a deportar? And my dad was like, no, no sé dónde estoy. And then that was it. Like, the call ended. And then my mom called my auntie. And then I just remember myself just like standing there being like frozen, like, what is this? And then I was just like, I didn't know what was going through my head. All I know is that night I went to sleep, and then I was like, I just need to find him. And then I remember I called back to that same number that night, and then it said the Otero facility. And that's when I was like, what is that? So it didn't go through my head. Google it. It just said the Otero facility. So then I go to my mom's room, and then I was like, my dad is at the Otero facility. Like, what is that? And then my mom's like, okay, like, let me try to find a lawyer. And then my mom calls my uncle, and then my uncle was like, no, he's just going to get deported. Like, it's a waste of money. And I remember being mad at my family, being like, what do you guys mean he's going to get deported? Like, he's going to come home. Like, right. I don't get what you guys are saying. He's going to get deported. So at that moment, me being 17, because November was my birthday, I was already feeling like this anger against my own family for saying that my dad was going to get deported. So then,
by the time that you received that call, ya había pasado bastante tiempo que no sabían nada de tu papá.
Like, I want to say like, not even like a week.
Still, I mean, that's too long.
No, that is long because
without knowing where your family members at.
I do want to say that during that time, the people that had lent the bond, I don't know how bonds work. They went to my house, and then they were looking for my dad because in the system it had showed that my dad had been released here.
Right.
So they went to our house, and they started looking for my dad, and we were like, he's not here, he's not here. They searched our whole house, and they were like, yes, it shows that he was released here in Albuquerque. And we were like, he's not here, he's not here. And the thing is that he was no salía ningún otro récord, nomás que ya lo habían soltado.
Like nobody nadie actualizó nada. They literally kidnapped him.
Yeah, that was, literally the timeline is he gets out, a van crosses in between y'all, and you don't see him anymore.
No.
Next thing you know, a week later, Bonds is looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Literally searching inside your house.
Yeah.
And what year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
That was still 2011.
2011. Wow, so that was right at the beginning of Otero Center opening then. Yeah. They opened in 2008. I have a report of 2013 where they're describing the conditions that we hear about the conditions now, but it again, like, this isn't new. And one of the things they talk about was that the people that the subcontractors that ICE is hiring to run this detention center had already been sued for negligence, for medical mismanagement, for not doing their job. And part of the stress that they put on families is that because they don't have any resources for folks to be able to advocate for themselves, to know even where they are, to know what the next steps are, no support and no connection. Like, they make it really hard to connect with family, to be able to talk about those things. These people are stressed out, high levels of anxiety, depression, can't eat, can't function. So what was it like to know, well, at this point, you don't know what conditions he's under. You just know that there, to some extent, he's not being taken care of. What was that like for you?
It was really hard. Like I said, my dad has always been like hardworking. He would make sure we had shoes. Like, he would make sure we had everything. So for me, it was so hard. Like I said, my dad's super tall. He's like 6'3". He's like, he would always look mad. He was really puff. So hearing this, my dad, like I used to remember him at that age, cry over the phone, saying that he had no shoes, that he didn't know what he had done wrong, and him explaining that he was sleeping on the floor. To me, it was just like, it completely like broke me, because I was like, how is this man that's giving everything to his family going through this? And it wasn't just my dad. I got to see how my mom went through like the hardest depression, how my mom would not sleep at nights, how my mom, to me, she was just like, they're waking up just because she had to, not because she wanted to. I'm the oldest, so how do I explain, how at that time, how would I explain to my brother, he was in elementary school, that my dad was not gonna come? Because I remember he would always be like, ya va a llegar mi papá. So how do you explain that to a little kid? Mm-hmm. My sister was in middle school, and she wouldn't ask anything, because she would see how my mom was, how I was, but I knew she was really sad. Like, she would get out of school and she would just go into the room. She wouldn't want to talk to us. And now that I talk to her, I know she has like this whole different story in her head. But it's like she told me, you were the oldest, you knew exactly what was going on. Mm-hmm. I remember we got a lawyer, and the lawyer never showed up to, I guess they don't have permission to show up to the court, or they just cancel the court. My dad didn't have a single court. He didn't have a way to show his case. We sent letters to him, but that was pretty much it. I do want to say that my dad was in there for 8 months. And in those 8 months, this is what he would send us. For him, this is the first one he sent us. Do I show it to them or the camera?
The camera, you can show it to them. We can see it right here.
Yeah, this is really old because I took it to a retreat, but this is how he remembered us.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So that's me and my daughter, my mom, my sister, my brother. As you guys can see, my brother has a uniform on because that's what he remembered.
Is that him in the middle?
No, that's my baby. That's how he thought my baby looked.
Oh.
And then
that's beautiful, dude.
When he saw that I was already super worried, He also sent me this one, La Virgencita. He would always be like, no, pues pídele a la Virgencita, mija. And then when he knew, like, my mom was not working and we were struggling, he sent some more so that I could sell them. He would be like, véndelos hasta por $10 para que tengan para comer. So even inside there, he was still trying to make money.
To support you guys as a family, right?
Yes. And like I said, this was his way of helping us with, like, income. And like I said, I had my daughter, like, little months before he was deported. And I had my first Mother's Day. But my dad was not there. But he made sure it was something special for me. So he sent me this one.
Oh. What an artist.
Yes. And that was his way of, like, letting us know that he was always thinking about us. That he supposedly that he was having not much of a bad time. He also sent us some wallets. And for those 8 months, my conversations to him were just me crying. It was me crying, him crying, my mom crying. And like I said, since I was the oldest child, like, I had to, like...
You were in the front lines of this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You had to step up.
Yeah, and because I was also... My mom doesn't know English, so she would be like, tú traduce. So then... I just remember, like... I knew I was a mom, but at that moment, like... I wasn't like a mom. I just wanted my dad to be home.
Yeah.
And I just remember going to school and, like, telling people, hey, like, this is happening in my family, and people being like, oh, you're undocumented. Oh, poor thing, your dad is getting deported. At that moment, I had, like, awesome friends, and they would be like, oh, you know what? Let's do a car wash. Let's do a car wash. We did different car washes. I learned how to dance Zumba. So after school, I would go to this place and give Zumba classes for like $2. And I just remember, like, trying to, like, be there for my mom, finish school, be there for my dad, be there for my brother and my sister, and also be a mom.
So you had all of these responsibilities, and you still continue to be a good mom to your kid, a good sister to your siblings, and a good daughter to both your dad and your mom.
Yeah.
Your dad was very strong and I kind of see, I love how you're telling us the story, because I can see the similarities between, like, you and your dad, how strong you guys are, and how, like, you're kind of like the pillar of the family. In his absence, instead of, like, you crumbling, like, you gave others, like, oh, I'm gonna cry. Oh. But you gave others the space to crumble so that you could hold them up. And at the same time, like, your dad is away from you. You don't know what's going to happen to him. We've seen how these kidnappings go. And these jails aren't meant to hold people in for this long. They're only supposed to be temporary, which is a big difference from, other for-profit jails, because we know that they're going to eventually come out. And jails, that's for citizens. And they go in, they come out. We know that there's usually a time that they'll be seen again. Here in detention centers, we don't know, and we don't know what they're doing to them. Right. And even through that, your dad is sending you love letters, is trying to think about you guys, is trying to remind y'all. Your dad is kind of like, it almost seems like a hero image in your head, and sort of like a reason why you stand up the way you do. I'm gonna cry. Oh, that's so sweet.
I remember every phone call, I would be like, no, Dad, like, don't sign any papers. Stay in there. We're going to get you out. And then I remember he called us one time, and then he was like, let me talk to your sister. And then my sister talks to him, and then he's like, guess what I'm wearing? I'm wearing Vans. He thought they were Vans. And I guess that was the first time he ever got shoes.
Wow.
From the whole time?
Yes, because he was...
Are we talking like a couple weeks in since since the first call was?
A couple months.
Months.
Yeah, because it was had already passed, like...
Entonces, desde la primera vez que recibiste esa llamada que te dijo
He
que
had no shoes.
no tenía zapatos,
Like 2 months later.
2 meses pasaron y fue cuando te
I
marcó
think he got a
emocionado.
bed when he was like, what, like 3-4 months in there. Yeah, because they were all on the floor. He said they were all sleeping on the floor because there was no other like
room
beds. Yeah, he said they even had all of them together. Like,
in like one cell.
yeah, and then like he would say that the food was not good. I think what really broke me was when he said he had lost, what, like 30 pounds.
That's insane. He is 6'3". He is your hero, and you're learning that he's not the same man anymore.
No. I knew he wasn't the same man in every phone call because his voice started off like, no, mija, no te preocupes, todo va a estar bien, to like, ya estoy cansado, ya no quiero estar aquí. So even if I was like cheering him on, I knew his voice had changed.
Right.
And I don't blame him. At that time, yo era bien egoísta. And I would be like, no, aguante. Because that's what he would tell me. He would be like, no llores nada más por llorar. So I remember I would be like, no, usted tiene que aguantar. Y aquí está su nieta. Y lo estamos esperando. No, I think it was just me being like, I didn't want to let go of the family that I had. I really wanted my daughter to grow up like saying like, oh, yo crecí con mis abuelitos. And I really wanted my mom to be the person she was before too. Like I said, every phone call cada llamada se puso más triste, más cortante, más desesperante. And it always had to be me. It always had to be me being like, no, Dad, you're gonna get out. Like I said, I was just being egoísta because I wasn't really in there. And he would tell me like, oh, ahora no dormí, or ahora no me bañé. And to me, hearing that at the beginning was like, okay, Dad, like, it's fine. Vas a salir. But now thinking about it, I'm just like, damn, like, I can't imagine a day without going sin un meal, without showering, without shoes, especially not knowing why I'm in there, without like my family or what I did. So, like I said, it was sad to hear the person you love being like, ya no quiero estar aquí, like, and me being like, no, aguante. And in those 8 months, like I said, I got to see my mom not sleeping and just hearing everyone say, ay, mira, pobrecita, pobrecita. And that was it. No one ever sat with me and told me, hey, like,
What's
this
going
happens.
on?
And I feel like if I could go back, my first thing would be like, hey, Dad, haga lo que su corazón le dice. And I'm just so grateful my dad is one of those men that got out vivo. And he doesn't talk about the topic anymore. He doesn't like to talk about it. But I know it still hurts him a lot what happened. And I know it still hurts my mom. And as you guys can see, it still hurts me. It still hurts me because I want to say that day that before I left to Clovis was the last time my family was all together.
Wow.
And I got to spend that Christmas with my dad. Where was Santa that Christmas?
Right.
That New Year's, I didn't get a New Year's hug from my dad.
Wow.
I don't know what he did. He couldn't call us Christmas or New Year's. So I don't want to be like, oh, me la pasé yo bien feo without knowing how my dad spent it.
Right.
He spent his birthday in jail. He missed my brother's birthday, Mother's Day. So I don't blame him at all for wanting to get out.
And
That's terrifying.
I also want to add, I don't blame yourself also for, holding to that hope that he was going to come back, right? Like, you were a kid, right? You wanted a hug from your dad. So your best advice to him was going to be like, Dad, aguántese, yo lo voy a traer y aquí va a estar conmigo. Yo sé que en ese momento, como dices tú, no tenías esa sabiduría de en verdad lo que pasaba adentro, pero por algo, ¿sabes?
At the same time, like, as a teenager and a young mom, you're watching both of your parents crumble.
Right.
And you're having to hold that.
Well,
That's
also
incredible.
taking care of your own child, right, at the same moment. And, you also had your siblings, your younger siblings, to be there for them, ensure that they had a next meal in the table. Everything was actually working out the way it was supposed to, because you wanted to maintain I guess, like, that feeling of that family together, like you saw before you left to Clovis that day.
Yeah. And I just remember being like, whenever he gets out, I'm going to hide him and my mom in the house and I'm going to go work. Yeah, because I remember thinking since I was 3 and I knew English, I was protected. Because, but like I said, never in my head did I think that could have happened to me too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I just remember I didn't notice it at that time how my mental health was, but I do remember just being like, not that I want to say like thinking like, no, like that no one liked me because of what had happened to my dad. But I remember one day when I went to school, I was just like, why am I saying this story? Why am I saying my dad's story? Why am I saying that my dad's in jail? Like,
did you feel guilty?
I kind of felt not guilty, but then I was like, I don't know how to explain it, because when one of the girls that I used to hang out with came to me and was like, hey, when are we having the next car wash for your dad? And then someone was like, what, did your dad die? And I was like, no. And then she was like, well, then why are you having a car wash? And then that girl was like, oh, because her dad's in jail. And then I was like, my dad's not in jail. And then he was like, well, then where's your dad? And then I remember I was like, wait, should I trust this person? Should I let them know that my dad is somewhere because he's undocumented? So that's when I was like, my first answer was like, what do you care? And since then, I think that's when I stopped telling people that my family was undocumented and that I was undocumented.
Wow.
I see it like as a trauma response, right? Of shutting yourself out.
Yeah.
Because you feel like everybody's against you, and especially because of the moment you're going through.
Yeah.
And all of the stress you had on you.
And then I remember I had another car wash. And I get it. That the el círculo de amigos que yo tenía was already tired. So I remember they didn't show up to the car wash. So my first instinct was like, okay, I'm by myself. And I don't need none of these people. So on Monday when I went to school, I didn't talk to no one anymore. Right. And that was me for the rest of my junior year and my senior year. I didn't talk to no one. And it's because I was mad at the world, and it's because I didn't want to let no one inside my house. I didn't want to let no one inside my world. And it was just because I really thought I was just being target. And it was because one time my dad just called me. I remember that I really wanted to talk to him because I had this dream. And then that day he called me, and then he was like, before I even said anything, he was like, mija, ya no puedo. Like, it's so bad in here.
I miss you guys a lot. Like, I just can't anymore. Like, voy a firmar para que me deporten. And then I just remember being like, no, like, don't do it. Like, yo puedo ir a visitarte. And my dad being like, no, estás loca, ni vayas a venir. And then I was like, no. And then he was like, déjame hablar con tu mamá. So then he talked to my mom, and then I could just hear my mom crying. And then I was like, let me talk to my dad. And then my mom was like, no, tu papá no quiere hablar contigo. So then I just remembered he hung up the phone. And I was so mad at him. I was mad because I was like, why is he giving up?
Right.
So then 3 days later, he called and he was already in Mexico. So that same day that he signed, the next day they were like, out.
Wow.
And you said it was 8 months, right? I can begin to imagine the feeling of seeing him get detained, seeing him get kidnapped by that white man, and then endure 8 months of hearing how his voice went from a happy man to somebody who wanted an out, to reliving everything all over again like it was the first day when he signed his deportation papers. Just, the system just put you through hell for 8 months. Not just you, but your whole family. And, I was wondering, like, how did his detention and his deportation, how did that shape you, your story, yourself as a young person, as a mom? Like, how was that whole going through it for you?
I think that's when mi primera identidad empezó. I want to call it the mysterious one. I graduated high school, and then my mom was like, oh, pues vas a tener que trabajar. I was like, yeah, I'm okay with it. Like, I'll work.
Like right off the bat.
Right off the bat, yeah. She was like, I need your help. You're going to have to work. And I was like, okay. And then she was like, voy a sacarte un seguro sueco y vas a trabajar en McDonald's. And I was like, okay, boss, let's do that. So then I remember I went to my job. I remember my mom gave me those papers, but they didn't have my last name. It had a different last name.
Right.
So that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be a different person.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my job interview. Right away, I got hired. I was not Itzayana anymore. I was just this whole different person. I was always mad. No one could tell me anything because I was mad. I was mad. And then I used to think everyone hated me. I used to think I was always target. So I used to live like in this shadow where I was like, okay, I have to be aware of my surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one could know who I really am. No one could know where I live. It was just me and my thoughts of like, you don't belong here. And if you're not, like, si no te cuidas, en cualquier momento te van a chingar.
It's, hearing your story earlier about as a kid where you felt like you belonged, right? But the moment your father was affected by this changed your whole perspective.
Yeah. I didn't even want to go to college because I thought that if I go to college, they were going to ask for my social security and I was going to get deported. I didn't want to go nowhere. I didn't want to travel. It was just me working and then going home, and I was constantly tired. If I would like sit on a couch, I would just fall asleep in the couch. No matter where I was always tired, always mad. And like I said, when my dad signed to get deported, I was also mad at him. Mm-hmm. So when he would call, I would be like, no, I don't want to talk to him. He gave up on us. Like, why would I want to talk to him? So I was just really mad. And like I said, I was a person that was just like constantly scared. I remember my sister being like, hey, the New Mexico Dream Team invited me to this section. And since I was so scared, I would be like, why are you doing that? You're just getting, tú sola te estás llamando a que te deporten. Like, what do you mean you guys are undocumented? Like, stop saying this. Like, I was just mad. Like, I was mad at my family. I was mad at myself. Estaba enojada con el sistema. Si una mosca pasaba, yo estaba enojada.
Tú y esa mosca la otra contra mí.
Yeah. So everything that happened was just, I was just mad. Like, it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal for an 18-year-old to be so mad. Like, si me decían pobrecita, I would be like, why?
Right.
O me decían, hey, ¿te puedo ayudar en algo? Why? ¿Qué escuchaste? Like, and it was also because since I'm the oldest child, I had to, like, be the strongest one, too. Like, I didn't want my sister to see me cry. I didn't want my brother to see me cry.
So your response was to shut everybody out.
Yep.
To make yourself look stronger and be like, I'm dealing with this the best way that I can, and this is how I show up.
Yeah. Well, this is an alter ego.
Yeah.
This is an alter ego.
But when I was out on the street, my head would always be down. I didn't want no one looking at me. I didn't want no one talking to me. And then I was constantly fighting with my siblings because I thought I knew what was best for them, because I wanted them to live in this, like, in esta cajita conmigo. Like, if we all stay together in this box, nothing's gonna happen.
Because the last time you got separated, something happened. Right.
So I just remember telling my mom, like, my mom would be like, hey, voy para acá. Why? ¿A dónde vas? ¿Y por qué vas para allá? And, like, who? And the same with my sister. Hey, my friend invited me to the movies. Who? Why? Like, why are you going out? Like, you could watch a movie here at the house. So I was just, like, constantly scared, constantly mad. I was just, like, really hateful. Like, I wouldn't want to watch the news. I used to think that everything was fake. I was that person that you would invite to a party, and then I would be like, oh, this is no fun. Like, I'm just going to go home. And that was me till the age of, 20. And then, sadly, I started drinking a lot. Like, a lot, because since I didn't know how to deal with, like, my issues, my anger, my whole, like, because I don't want to say, nothing bad about my mom. But when my dad got deported, my mom also shut herself down. So, like I said, I was like,
it took a toll on you.
Yeah, I was guiding myself.
Yeah,
so I was like, oh, I'm already 21. So,
you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of, like, a lot of stories that we hear of, like, the youth nowadays. And I'm thinking, like, Otero County Detention Center has been running for 14 years. We're adults now, but there are people that have been affected by this since probably when they were babies, and they had to grow up with similar traumas, handle it probably different ways, create alter egos as well, create their own, like, shields without their family. And since then you've been able to speak about this story, to share your story with others. And so, I mean, you've translated for families. You've been in, like, these monumental moments that change people's lives, like the protest on Bryan's birthday that we talked about with Edwin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this has been going on for 14 years again. Like, this is not new. You are a product. You've lived. You know what's on the other side of these systems at this point that we keep fighting against. So, what do you think people need to understand about the reality of these things?
I think people have to understand that there's so many things that are like, oh, well, if they would have done it the correct way. Well, if they would have been, like, they would have been through the process.
It's always that talk, right?
Yeah. People have to understand the process is not for everyone. My dad waited 8 months for a process to see a lawyer, to get, like, a court date, to be just able to say, like, hey, my name is Jorge, and I'm here because of this. My dad, like I said, he just worked. I thought we were doing everything correctly, but people have to understand the system is not created for everyone. The system was not created for my family. And even if they say, oh, well, they should come in the legal way. What is the legal way? What is the legal way? Like I said, not a lot of people could just say like, voy a agarrar mis papeles y ya. No. You have to show that you could be able to do this, do that. And even if you do apply to be like, I'm going to get my papers, the punishment is you have to go back 10 years to Mexico.
Yeah. And
Imagine.
on top of that, it's also the going back for el perdón. And then most of these cases, the fastest we've seen with this backlog is 10 years, right? It's a whole lifetime that people need a way for them to be the legal way, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, like the whole process is not for everyone. And I'm pretty sure if they would have told my dad 10 years ago, you could fix your papers, but you have to leave 10 years, my dad would have been like, no, chinguense, yo no me voy a ir, no voy a dejar a mi familia. Okay, you don't want to do it? We're going to put you in a detention center, and then you're going to get tired because of the way we're going to treat you, and you're going to say like, oh, deport me. So what is the system? Who is the system created for? I really don't get it because it was not created for me and my family.
It didn't look like that.
It didn't look like that. And the sad part is that I didn't understand it when I was younger. That I understand it when I was, 24? And I do want to bring something up. And it was really sad for me too. Last year, I was part of D&D, Dignity Not Detention. That coalition has my heart.
And sorry, just so that the audience knows what the D&D coalition is, it's a coalition of people, immigrant rights groups, allies, people that are directly affected, that have been trying to speak to these problems and not just bring awareness and call out the years and years of abuse that have been going on in this detention center, but trying to do something actively about it, trying to change the legislation so that New Mexico is not complicit with these things. So you being in that coalition, I think, just adds to the power.
Last year, a family reached out to me, and she told me that her brother was doing things the correctly way. John Benavides, and he ended up in Otero. He ended up in that detention facility, and he died. So, what is the correct way? He was just there waiting for his case, waiting for his visa to get approved, and look what happened.
How was dealing with that, right? This is how many years after everything that happened with your dad?
What happened with my dad was 2011, and that was 2024. What was it, 13 years? 13? I just remember they needed someone to translate, and then I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I was like, it's not going to be this hard. I get to talk to his sister, and she told me John's story. And what really broke me was that she said, oh, él tiene una hija. And he said bye to his babies. And that was it. And if I'm not wrong, his baby is 3, and I think the other one was 4. So I was like, how do you explain to those kids that they will never talk to his John on the phone, or they would never see him anymore? And like I said, that was the correct way. He just wanted to get his visa, and look what happened.
They literally killed him.
And I just remember at that moment, like, I called my dad, and I was like, hey, Dad, like, sorry I ever, like, told you to stay there. Like, hearing John's story, and I don't want to say that I'm lucky, because I'm not lucky because of what happened. But I think to myself, what would have happened to my dad if I still would have been like, ahí quédate, ahí quédate, ahí quédate. John, that day, he was just working. And he died, and his family didn't even know. And it took months to be able to get his body back to Ecuador. I would constantly have to be calling. I called Otero, I think, and the sucky part about it is that if you die in these detention centers and no one claims you, they literally queman tu cuerpo y te entierran ellos without no one knowing. So I'm like, who is giving you guys this permission to do that? What do you mean que no puedes encontrar un familiar de él? So tú lo vas a quemar y lo vas a enterrar. ¿Dónde? Y nomás le vas a poner un palo allí que diga el nombre de la persona.
Y te apuesto que ni intentan activamente buscar a los familiares de esas personas.
No, because John lo había reclamado una funeral home y luego lo había reclamado otra funeral home. So two funeral homes tenían su información, but none of them had him. And they were ready to burn his body.
But no one had the body.
No.
That is just is so insulting, given that these centers are known for having the most incompetent process for transferring, even when people are alive. Imagine when they can't even advocate for themselves.
Exactly.
When they can't reach people that are like the families that these people often come from are so poor that it's hard to reach them, and they use that as an excuse to do whatever they want with their bodies. Just
it's inhumane. It's
highlights the
inhumane. It's
inhumanity.
deteriorating. It's evil. Like, it's just evil. It's, who are you to play God like that? You know, it's just,
and they're having you have to deliver the news yourself. They don't even have the skills, the competency, the process to do it themselves and tell the family.
Yeah, and then I remember his sister being like, "Oh, queremos una autopsia," and then being like, "Oh no, we'll send it to you whenever it's ready." What do you mean que han pasado 5 meses and it's still not ready? And I knew John passed away because he didn't get his medication. If ICE and these detention centers already knew he had something, why don't you just give him his medication? And like I said, it got me so mad that they were just like, "Oh, well, you know what? Like, we don't know where his body's at. That's it." So then I remember la hermana was like, "No, we need my brother back. My mom is sad. My dad is sad."
right.
They were constantly crying. That's not the way that he said goodbye. So then a whole process had to start. El Consulado de Ecuador had to get involved. And then next thing you know, John is in Houston.
And he passed away in Otero.
Yeah. And now he was in Houston. And it was tiring for me because I had to talk to the sister. I had to hear her story. I had to talk to his brother. I had to hear his story. There was a point where they even had me talk to the mom and the dad, and I could just hear the pain in their voice. And I was just like, "Les prometo que estoy haciendo lo que puedo." And at the moment, once again, I felt like I was 16, 17, and I was hopeless. Like, yo les daba a ellos esta hope that, "No, don't worry, we're going to find him and you're going to have his body." But inside of me, what was I doing? I was just hoping for the best. And it reminded me of when I was little and I kept saying to my dad, "Epa, todo va a estar bien." But it was just hope inside of me.
You know, that just comes to show that the system is not improving. It's just going down even worse. It's just getting worse, right? Because ain't no way you went through it when you were 16 and now years later you're going again, and it's just harder than it was back in the day.
Yeah.
I think that is really, really powerful, because what D&D is trying to do is at least bring in some legal oversight of these things, because we have senators, we have New Mexico, not Republicans, but representatives that are saying like, "Oh, well, if they're not here in New Mexico, who is more progressive and cares more about immigrants, and they're going to go to a worse place, we have to take them in. We have to take care of them."
No.
Look at what happens. And this has been going on for 14 years. John passed away because of lack of medication. The 2013 report that was observing Otero when it first opened in 2008 reported the same type of mismanagement. Testimonies where people were not being given their life-saving medication, and that being taken to the point where they were almost dying, and the Otero detention physicians neglecting them for multiple days until they were on the brink of death, had to go to the hospital, and the hospital would confirm this person was about to die had they gotten here a day later. And John was unfortunate enough that he didn't get the care in time. This is 14 years after the report, and they're still saying that this is better. than other places, that they're luckier here than somewhere else, that they can't do anything to implement legal oversight because this is a for-profit center.
And remember, like just this episode alone, we've only held 2 stories. You know, Itzayana's dad and John. This is 2 stories out of 1 detention center that we have 3 of in the state, right? This is 1 story of many, many, many stories. And
but look at how many lives it touched.
Exactly.
You, your families, John's and their family, his children are gonna have to grow up. And what are they gonna do? What support does the United States government, what support is Otero doing for them? No. Just shrugging their shoulders and saying, "Oh well, next one."
Yeah.
Next one to get kidnapped.
And gracias a Dios, la familia recuperó el cuerpo de John. Le dieron la sepultura que se merecía. And I'm glad his kids got to say goodbye, because like I said, that was like constantly affecting me. His kids saying bye to him, and then like, is that it? Like, no, he has to be with his kids. And John's sister constantly would tell me, if my brother's death is the solution for detention centers to be shut down, it's fine. So imagine hearing that. I was just like, what do you respond to that? I was just speechless. And she says that was John's mission, to probably die there for these detentions to be closed. And it fucking sucks, because these detentions are still open and they're still operating. Wow. So how do I tell Sister John, hey, these places are still going on? I remember there was this protest, and I remember that I was so excited to go, and I was just really motivated. And we did this car rally for D&D. And I remember with me it was Karen, and I just remember like we were going and we were driving, and all of a sudden like you see like this little light on the windows, because we were protesting in front of Torrance. Yeah, we were protesting in front of Torrance. And I just remember seeing like these little like lights on the windows, and like
sun reflections.
Yeah, and then I just remember like when you hit the window really hard. And then I remember we all just stayed quiet, and it was the people inside of the detention. Nos estaban escuchando, and we were protesting outside, and they were protesting inside. And I just remember like everything there stopped for me. And then I remember just thinking to myself, like, wow, this is community. And at least they know que, like, no están solos, and que they have, like, all of these people fighting out there for them. And I just remember, like, going back to when I was a teenager and thinking, like, I wish I would have had this. I wish I would have had someone to go up to and be like, something inside of me hurts, but I don't know what it is. And just tell them my story. And I remember that I got an interview that day, and telling them, it makes me happy to see that they feel like they're being heard and que no están solos. And I could just imagine them like hitting the windows and being like, oh my God, look at all these people. Like, they believe in us. And I wish my dad would have gotten that. I wish my dad would have gotten like the whole, mira, hay gente afuera que le importo, que le preocupo y que me está apoyando. Because I'm pretty sure that inside there, they feel lonely. They feel hopeless. And that day, I just remember I was just crying, and I wanted to hug them all, and I wanted to open those gates. And I went home, and I still cried. And I once again called my dad. And I was like, hey, Dad, like, te quiero mucho. Like, I can't wait to go see you. And and I did this today, and my dad was like, estoy bien orgulloso de ti, like, siento que lo que me pasó a mí fue para empoderar a ti y a tu hermana. So him saying, like, lo que me pasó a mí fue para empoderarlas was like, no, dad, that should have not happened to you. Like, we were here as a family, so we should have, like, continued to be a family. And while that was happening, I could just think about, like, todas las familias que han separado. Todas. And I remember just looking at, like, eyes and their faces, and they were just there looking at us like, oh, okay, you guys could continue to protest. I was just like, you guys are fucking losers. Like, how can you not see this and not think to not have empathy in you? Like, come on. Like, all of these people, they're just here for one dream. I know my dad brought us here so we could be successful, so we could live the life he didn't live, so we could have more opportunities. What do you mean you're going to take that off from a family? What do you mean you're going to take their parents and just be like, oh, no, like, hay que separarlos. This is the system, the separate families. Ooh, we have a badass system. What do you mean? Why are you causing that trauma to that family? Because no one ever sat with me and asked me, hey, ¿cómo te sentiste después de lo que pasó con tu papá? No one. I just remember them being like, oh, well, your dad signed and that's it. He left. He's in Mexico.
They treat it like any other number.
Yeah. And then I remember what would get me so pissed off was when I would call and I would be like, oh, pues estamos hablando para Jorge. Oh, give me his A number. What do you mean his A number? He has a fucking name, not an A number. So that's when I was like, oh, so now when I would call at that time, I would be like, A number, and then they would be like, oh, Jorge. Yeah, what do you mean, Jorge? Yeah. So like I said, for the longest time, I was so mad. So
again, dehumanizing, human people inside of those detention centers.
Yeah.
Right? Putting them like a number, like there's some sort of ganado or anything like that, right?
And like I said, that day with the mirrors, I still go back to that YouTube and I see that video and I'm just like, damn, we're so powerful. Like I said, I was so happy that they were protesting inside and that we were protesting outside, and that together we made this big protest. And it was just powerful.
Like a protest que ni se planeó. Like we were not thinking that they were gonna be inside protesting, hearing us and actually showing up and letting us know that they
were
heard
responding.
us. Yeah, it was surreal.
And they didn't have much, so they're so smart. They were like, oh, con el espejo. And just seeing the thing with the espejo, oh my God, I was like, esa es la luz que todos ocupamos.
Like it got a point, and like she mentioned in the YouTube video, you can go back to that YouTube video and you can literally hear the tappings. It's surreal. It's very dystopian to me.
Oh yeah. And then I remember like a month later there was another protest, and I was like, I'm going to that protest too. You went with me, Betzaira, remember?
Lord, that was
and once again we were outside protesting, and then I was like, I'm gonna keep protesting till let's see what happens. And yeah, like I said, and now with TikTok that I get to see like these kids crying like, no, don't separate me from my mom or my dad. I'm just like, okay, once again, what is the system? Tell me, like, your system is to separate families? Explain that to me. And also explain to me what is the correct way of doing this if John was doing the correct way.
Exactly. Now, with all of that in mind, everything you told us about your story, if everybody in New Mexico, every single family that lives here, doesn't matter about their status, mixed status families, allies, whatever it is, if they could just hear one message from you today, like what would you want them to carry with them after, hearing your story?
I have so many messages. But for me, my message is to reach out to like organizations. My whole view of like how I used to see the picture, because like I said, I used to live in a shadow, was when my sister invited me to work as canvassing for the census. So then I remember I would have to call, and then people would be like, no, you're immigration.
You just want to know how many people live here, and you just want to, like, your
Mhm.
immigration. They were so scared. And then I remember I was like, damn, that's how I live. I was like, why are they so scared if it's just me? And then I thought to myself, why am I so scared?
Mhm.
Like, so then it was like an eye opener for me. I was like, so then I told my sister, I was like, hey, like, if there's something happening with the New Mexico Dream Team, can you like invite me? And she was like, yeah. So then I started being part of the New Mexico Dream Team, and then I started getting involved with pop. And then I remember one time they were like, hey, can you share your story? And I was just like, no, like, what do you mean share my story? Like, this is scary. Like, I'm not going to share my story. But then they give you these trainings where you do story of self, and it's just you, it's your identity, it's the person. Tu historia es lo que te convierte ahorita. So I was like, yeah, dije, I'm going to start off slow. So then they escribieron un op-ed, and then they were like, no, now we want to hear your story. So then the first time I shared my story, I just cried a lot because I was like nervous, and it wasn't, like I said, it was my story. It was something new for me. Like, never would I think that I would stand up in a crowd and be like, this happened to me. So then I remember it was a legislative session, and then they were like, hey, we would like for you to share your story. And I was like, okay. And I think that was the first time I ever felt like, once again, I was being heard. I was being, me sentí protegida, me sentí escuchada, y me sentí en comunidad. And I think at that moment I was like, that's it. I'm no longer scared. Like, this is who I am, and if this happened to me, it's because you guys didn't, not because I wanted to. And just like me, there's many stories out there. And if I don't show people that there's this place called the New Mexico Dream Team that you could just come and tell them, hey, like, esto me pasó, and can you help me? No one else is going to hear you. And like I said, I used to live in a shadow, and till one day I sat with Felipe and I told him my story, and then I sat with Eduardo, and every year I would get like this like trauma where I was just like, you know what, I'm not gonna say my story. And I'm just crying, and they would sit with me and they would be like, you know what, your story makes you you. And if you want to share it, it's so powerful, and if you don't, we will we'll support that. And I just remember one time they did this video, and MLC did this video about me saying my story. And then they just played it at the legislative session. And then once again, like, I was like, yeah, that's me, and that's my story. And fuck all you legislators that are not paying attention. And I just felt like so powerful.
Separating families is not just separating families. Hay muchas cosas más sobre eso. Están las mamás destrozadas, hijos que tienen miedo. Los hijos mayores cargamos con mucho. Y I'm always going to say the mental health part. Like I said, everyone's prepared for... Everyone could say like, oh, un día me pueden deportar. But then what happens after that? No one's really prepared for that. I was not prepared for that. My family was not prepared for that. So, like I said, please reach out to like organizations cerca de ti. Never keep those feelings inside of you, because it could happen what happened to me. Like I said, I was mad. I was super mad. I was super scared. I didn't want to be Itzayana. I wanted to be everyone else except myself.
Right.
And como ven, like, estas historias siguen. And it's sad. It's sad because yo me meto a TikTok and I see videos donde en Otero les estaban dando la leche caducada. Like,
There's...
¿cómo es que hay todo esto and you're telling me you can't even feed them a meal?
Right.
Y
And
luego, sorry for interrupting you. Pero esta teoría de, oh, these places bring more jobs. What do you mean they bring more jobs? Like, a mí me ha tocado ver que las personas que trabajan en la de Otero, todos tienen placas del Paso. All Texas. No se ve how are you telling me that's going to benefit? How is that bringing money to us? How is you saying, oh, I support my community and I'm here to hear you guys out, but then you're receiving money from these places? O sea, it's either like you're in our side and you protect our rights, or you're on their side.
Entonces, y quiero recalcar que mencionaste de que has visto TikToks y testimonios de que dicen que dan la leche caducada. Eso es uno de muchísimos. En Instagram hay un Instagram que se llama Testimonies from TCDF, which is the Torrance County Detention Facility, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's testimonies, and you can go see them. It's literally handwritten by them. It is told by them, by people inside of the detention center. And it goes beyond from negligent, medical negligence, all the way to expired milk.
And I also want to say que estas cosas, like, no nomás pasan. Sadly, my brother and my sister also still live with that trauma, and they haven't seen my dad ever since. And like I said, it's not just, oh, like these detention centers are there and they're for this and that. No. Si esos detention centers el día de mañana se cerraran, I feel like fuera un big relief for my communities. And they would not be missed. Like, you tell me what's the benefit of those places. How are they helping? No tienen camas, no dan comida, no tienen para dar zapatos. What are they there for? Other than to treat my community bad. That anger of me wanting to go and protest and just share my voice still lives in me. And it's not like, oh, ella nació con eso. Ella tiene eso en ella. No, ustedes me lo provocaron. Ustedes me hicieron eso. Y por eso yo ahora quiero alzar la voz. Oh, you want me to be quiet? Don't give me a reason to continue talking. How are you explaining to me que han tenido 10 años para cerrar estos lugares, para incluso give them a good meal, and you guys don't do nothing? How are you going to tell us, oh, these places bring money, when people in there are not even treated with respeto? Y hay tantos documentarios y ha salido tanto en las noticias, like bathrooms are floated, constantly they're doing hunger strikes because they're not being treated correctly. So how are you going to tell me these places some benefit? For who? Not for me, not for my family, and not for my communities. And if these places continue to exist, nomás nos da más motivos para seguir creating that hate inside of us. And like I said, now with everything trending on TikTok, on social media, I'm glad people are raising their voices. I'm glad people are being like, oh, look, this person is getting detained. Like, these are the people detaining them. Pinche vergüenza deberías darles a la gente tener su cara ahí haciendo estas maldades. And that's what gets me so mad. And like I say, we are not violent people. You guys gave me a reason to be mad at how the system works and to be mad at what you guys are doing. And like I said, if tomorrow I get invited to protest, I'm going to go protest. Because todo esto a mí se me hace tan injusto. Because at the end of the day, soy la hija de Jorge. No soy la hija de un A number. And I don't want it to continue to be like that. Y te digo, if my story and my anger and the way I used to live now brought me to like share my voice and help others share their voice too, and make them feel understand that anger that we carry inside could just become, puede ser algo poderoso for you to share it and see that other people te entienden. Y quiero recalcar y decir que no están solos. No están solos. No matter how lonely you feel, no matter how you're like, oh my God, I should live con miedo. Nunca vas a estar solos. Reach out to the New Mexico Dream Team. There's other organizations. Talk to your friends, but never hold anything inside.
I think about what you were saying earlier and how your dad is so proud of you now that you're doing the work, and like you guys are going to protest, you guys are returning the humanity to these stories, holding space for them, holding on to them, making sure that they're not forgotten or discarded. And I just think how powerful that is, that these could have easily been swept up under the rug, and yet you guys keep it alive. I think that's powerful. I think keeping those stories is part of the tradition, is part of the work that we have to do. And if nothing else, that's something that others can do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, you can keep those stories, you can keep sharing those stories, hold on to those stories, humanize them, see the humanity of these people, because it's not okay. Like you said, it's not just, it's not fair, it's not right to just discard people.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to share is that I don't know how to say. Never be mad at yourself for the person that you are. Nunca nos preparan para lo que pueda pasar ni lo que pueda venir. Hay muchas cosas que nosotros no podemos controlar, pero don't be mad at yourself. You're incredible. We're here all for a reason. And remember que those hard days, just hug yourself. Hug yourself. And like I said, find a community and just learn how to breathe. And just know que siempre, siempre va a haber como una salida. And I wish those words would have been given to me, not pobrecita.
Mm-hmm.
And is there any questions you guys have for me?
No,
Red or green?
red or green.
My chili?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think, thank you again for putting yourself in the spot again, putting yourself to tell that story, even though it brings out that feelings, you're still putting yourself in that spot, and, really appreciate it. Thank you for making the time to come into Beyond the Stars.
Thank you, Itzayana, for sharing your story with us. It's very touching, and it humanizes the experience that people go through. I think about the quote that you said about your dad and how proud he is of the work that you're doing now, the work that you're continuing, the value that you're giving his experience and other people, such as John and his family. I'm wondering, have you been in contact with him since then? You fell off a little bit with him. How have you reconnected with him?
Yes. I did mention I was mad at him for deciding to sign his release. But I do want to share that what was it, 4 years ago, I was able to see him again, and I just remember being so excited. That same feeling that I got when I saw him walk out of jail is the same feeling I got when I was in front of him. And I just remember him being like, ay, mija, pensé que nunca te iba a volver a ver. And then me just feeling like a little girl, and just I went to hug him, and I was like, nada es imposible, papá. Look at us. And he cried, and I cried, and he got to meet my daughter. And I think that part exactly of him hugging me is lo que me sanó. Now I get to better understand what people think when they go in there. And it sucks. It sucks to think that you'll never see your family again. And that's the true reality of all these detention centers. People go in there and they're fully scared and they're treated bad, and they just have negative thoughts. And no one deserves to be in those places. They deserve to be shut down.